In the 1830s, a German naturalist left some caterpillars with a girl in Chile, and he went off to explore the rest of South America. When he came back, he was arrested for heresy because, of course, the caterpillars had spun a cocoon and emerged out as butterflies, and it must be magic. However, despite the mystical nature of metamorphosis, it is not rare. In fact, metamorphosis is present across the entire tree of life and is present in over 80% of all animal species. On top of this, 80% of those species are insects that undergo complete metamorphosis. That is, that they have a larval and an adult state that is completely separated by a cocoon phase. What's really important about these species is that they're not only hyperdiverse, but they're really good at invading novel environments. This oftentimes means our crops. So it's really important to understand how these species are invading these novel environments and the mechanisms that underlie this change. As an evolutionary geneticist, I'm interested in understanding why these species are so hyperdiverse as well. And the answer might lie in the ability of the larvae and the adults to perform different tasks. I like to think of this as a train. So we have all of the traits and genes that are being expressed in these individuals. We have one engine that is growth, pulling in one direction, and a second engine that is reproduction, pulling in an opposite direction. When the two engines pull in opposite directions, evolution can't progress. However, if we can decouple the traits so that some traits or genes are being associated only with the reproduction engine and others being only associated with the growth engine, then they can go in opposite directions and evolution can progress rapidly. This is the logic that underlies what's called the adaptive decoupling hypothesis. And this is the idea that decoupling genes or traits is adaptive or advantageous. I looked at this in a hypermetamorphic species, and by hypermetamorphic, I mean that the larval stages have multiple metamorphic events, as well as that cocoon stage that separates the larval and the adult stages. Now, according to the adaptive decoupling hypothesis, stages that are very similar should have similar traits and should have very few genes that are differentially expressed. Here I'm showing you a visual representation of the number of genes being differentially expressed in red. You can see that between the first two larval instars, there's really no difference. And these two stages are really similar in their traits as well. They're interested in eating and hanging out with their buddies. The adaptive decoupling hypothesis also predicts that the most extreme differences should be seen that are separated by a complete metamorphic event. So that is the larval and the adult stages. And as you can see, there's a huge amount of red dots that are separating these two stages, signifying that there are lots of genes that are differentially expressed. This supports the adaptive decoupling hypothesis and will help to explain why these species are so diverse and able to go into new environments. Thank you.